We return now to Washington, which is on high alert ahead of tomorrow's planned Justice for J6 rally. Officials estimate about 700 people will attend to show support for those jailed in connection with the deadly storming of the Capitol earlier this year. So I want to bring in our congressional correspondent, Kris Van Cleave, who's just outside the Capitol, to talk about how things are shaping up there. How are police preparing for this? They seem to not be taking any chances, at least this time around.
Well, yeah, certainly this is going to be the biggest test of security in the D.C. area since January 6th. And even if all of this is an abundance of caution, there is clearly a sense among law enforcement when you talk to them that this is a take no chances, just go plan for the worst, prepare for the worst, hope for the best type of situation. So you have a fence up around the Capitol, around the Supreme Court. You also have a high-tech HD camera system that's gone in. This is on loan from the United States Army. And then you're going to see the visible police presence really start to ramp up as the day goes on. You're going to see a full deployment of the U.S. Capitol Police, full deployment of the D.C. Police, and these are large police forces. You're talking about thousands of officers being on the clock. Sounds like probably like 12-hour shifts. And then you've also had requests for surrounding law enforcement agencies to provide some officers as well. You have the National Guard on standby. So it's going to be a very visible police presence. You're going to see road closures around the Capitol. You've got the fence line up. It is the type of preparation that perhaps in hindsight should have been in place for January 6th.
Right. So aside from the rally tomorrow, though, authorities are a little concerned about the potential for violence today. What is that based on? Well,
so again, we talk about this could all be just purely out of an abundance of caution, but there is some online chatter, not only about some concerning rhetoric for tomorrow, but also about today. Some talk of some people thinking it might be a good idea to try to storm the Capitol later today or this evening. The level of credibility of that is hard to run down, but it's enough that many congressional offices are encouraging their staff to work from home, and that you have seen at least that bulletin go out to law enforcement that there has been talk of this.
So listen, in terms of the crowd that we're going to see tomorrow, on January 6th, often the crowd that day was described as a pro-Trump crowd. This time around, at least it seems like there's a push to make this less political and I guess just strictly support those who were arrested and charged on January 6th. What can you tell us about this sort of scaled back in terms of politics event? Well,
yeah, let's be clear. This is going to be a pro-Trump crowd, whether they're wearing Trump hats and flying Trump flags. I mean, the organizer is a former Trump campaign staffer. Now, there has been an effort to encourage people that are coming to not fly the Trump flag, not wear the Trump hat. So you may see a lot of American flags instead. And that is certainly an attempt to try to change the rhetoric and what the visuals will be of the optics, if you will, of this demonstration. It is not good for Republicans if the focus is on January 6th. It's better for Republicans if the focus is on Democrats. So creating a visual where you have hundreds of people flying the Trump flag surrounding the Capitol and questioning the viability of what happened on January 6th or the treatment of the people who have been arrested for storming the Capitol, it's just not a good look for Republicans. And that has many on the right kind of concerned about the optics. And that's part of what's driving this conversation to maybe tone down the visible Trump signage and hats and flags and all of that.
Oh, that is very interesting because I did wonder about that. So the rally is supposed to be seeking justice. Their words, justice for those jailed during the January 6th riot, implying that, maybe they are political prisoners. Maybe it's too strong of a phrase, but that perhaps they are somehow not being treated in a just manner. So I just want to ask you, we've had, a few of these individuals go to court. A few of these individuals have received their sentence. Is there any merit to the idea that they are being treated unfairly?
Well, you certainly have some on the right that argue they are. Former President Trump put out a statement saying that they're being persecuted so unfairly. But in reality, these are folks that were arrested and charged with storming the Capitol, with trying to disrupt the peaceful transition of power. These are things that are central tenets of the American democracy that folks were arrested and charged for trying to disrupt. The people that are being held are being given due process. They have had court hearings. They're going to face a judge. If they choose to go to trial, they will face a judge and jury, and they will go through the legal system the same way that anyone else accused of a crime is going through the legal system. So, the rhetoric by some on the right is that this is unfair, but everything that we have seen is that this is the legal system working, and if you decide to storm the Capitol when there are many members in the line of succession, there are going to be consequences for that. If you try to disrupt democracy, disrupt the transition of power, there are consequences for that.
All right. And just quickly before you leave, the expectation is about 700 people or so. Is there a chance there could be more, or is this sort of the number that law enforcement's sort of expecting?
Well, there is always a chance, right? We don't know what we don't know, and that's what really concerns law enforcement. They know what their projections are. They know what the permit size is. They're expecting around 700. We also expect that there will be some counter protesters. So how many people show up to protest the protest is a bit of an open question. And one of the goals will be keeping the counter protesters away from the protesters so that they don't have an opportunity to get into it. And then there remains concern, and I have been hearing this from federal law enforcement sources for weeks. There is concern about, well, what if one person, sort of that lone wolf, decides to try to do something or use the crowd as cover to do something? So there's plenty of things to be concerned about, but they're planning for a crowd of 700 plus or minus. To put that into perspective, we saw an estimated 10 to 15,000 descend upon the Capitol on January 6th. So we're talking about a much smaller crowd than what we saw January 6th, and you're seeing a much different posture from police and just a different level of preparation than what we saw on January 6th. And this is, and Anne-Marie, Washington, D.C., I've said this a lot. People yell at buildings here every day. So this is a city that is used to protests. The police are pretty skilled at this when they're prepared, and it seems like they are doing all the things that you would want them to do ahead of this, beyond those things that we don't know.
Well, I should hope so. Goodness knows there were enough congressional hearings on what happened on January 6th and where where there were failures at every level. So hopefully, they will pass this test with flying colors. Kris, thank you so much.
Sure thing.